The wait is over. What started as the next step in Zain Bando's sports media journey has officially evolved. We are live on the Empty the Bench Network. This is the home for unfiltered, unapologetic takes on combat sports, college athletics, and everything else in between. Welcome to Bando's Breakdowns, the show where the wheelchair is just a footnote and the sports takes are unmissable. And now, here's your host, Zain Bando.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to a new edition of Bando's Breakdowns. This is episode 96. We are officially in the live era as we await the intro music to fade out. My name is Zain Bando. Hope you are doing well on this pre-4th of July, if you will. It is Friday, July 3rd, 2026. Hope you all are doing fantastic as always. Thanks again for tuning in. We are live this week for the very first time, officially moving forward in the show's history. We've done some live streams in the past regarding Zanzinger Part 2. Those are still going to continue, but we are in the live era now of Bando's Breakdowns as we approach 100 episodes of this very show that I started all the way back in April of 2024 with some fun memories along the way. Figured bringing it to you guys in this format would be a little bit of a better idea, just considering that now the entire network is live every single day almost across all the different shows. I'm pretty sure it's now 17 different shows that we do across this network. It's a lot of work. We do a lot of things on here and we cover all sports. This is me and me only, which I know a lot of you guys do come to this particular medium for me, so I really appreciate it. We are live across several different platforms associated not just with me, but with the ETB network as well. It is the ETB network YouTube channel, of course, the Bando's Breakdowns Twitter account, the ETB network Twitter account, the Press Row Twitter account, MMA Outsiders, and of course, my own Twitter account and YouTube channels as well. Let's get into some of the particulars before we get started with today's show. And again, thank you so much for tuning in. If you have not done so already, this is very important. Please be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to the Empty the Bench Podcast Network. It only takes about 10 to 15 seconds of your day. Would be really much appreciated if you guys did that, as we're trying to funnel as much content to this channel as we can as we approach 3,000 and eventually 4,000 watch hours. So to do so, go to youtube.com/ETB Network to find out more about all that. Keep the notification bell turned on. That way you know about the upcoming schedule of all the shows that are coming up here on the ETV network. We're going to plug a few of these shows on this program as well that you guys don't want to miss as we get into weekend programming and into early next week following the 4th of July. So stay tuned for that in just a couple of minutes. Follow the show on social media at Bando's Breakdown. And of course, for those of you who have never seen me before, my name is Zain Bando. I'm a sports journalist and an ETB network host. You can find me across several mediums, including on Sports Illustrated, the Sporting News, Field Level Media, and tons of other syndicates. Maybe some announcements on the way soon regarding where I may end up in the coming months, but we're going to keep that on the back burner for now, as I always try to expand my reach across multiple different sites. It's something I've done for years, and I've been able to build a pretty good base regarding all that stuff. So if you want my written work, you can check it out there. We're also in the process of building a independent site as well, so it'll be easier than ever for me to get pitches and stuff like that. That is still in the works, more to be talked about on that front as we get closer to the launch, but wanted to tease that as well, that I have that working in the background, so to speak. Looking forward to putting that together and showing it to you guys when I can. And of course, you can listen to all the archives of Bando's breakdowns wherever you get your podcast. We're taking a break from the audio side for a little bit. Once we get those archived and up, I will let you know, because I know there are a lot of RSS listeners that have followed the show since its inception, and hopefully we can get that library curated very much so in the near future for you guys to go back and listen to the show. But of course, if you have YouTube Premium, you can always listen to this very show that way as well. If you don't want to see me, it still counts for something. So really much appreciate if you guys do that as well. All right, let's get into the show that is episode 96. And without further ado, here we go. So let's get started. Let's start though with Zain's overview. What we're going to be discussing on today's program, as we like to do. We've done this format every single week since the beginning of the show, all the way back once again, like I said, in April of 2024. So to get into what we're going to be discussing today, we will be talking about what is going on with the Dianna Russini, Mike Vrabel story. New body cam footage is now coming out regarding Dianna Russini's interaction with police officers about a traffic stop related to some coaching news that is not directly related to Mike Vrabel, but just goes to show, let's just say, Dianna Russini's insecurity, as it still remains unclear what her next move in sports media is going to be. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about all the major NBA trades that have gone on as well. What's going on with Kawhi Leonard? What is LeBron going to do? What have the Bulls done? What did Jaylen Brown do, which has been breaking news over the last couple of days or day or so, based on whenever you guys are watching this, even if it's the replay version of it. So we'll talk about that. We will also talk about a banger of a UFC Baku card from this past Saturday. There is no UFC tomorrow night, as the UFC is a rare week off before its blockbuster UFC 329 event a week from Saturday at the T-Mobile Arena. And speaking of the T-Mobile Arena and UFC 329, we will be discussing Conor McGregor's latest photo ops, I guess if you want to call them those, that have surfaced across the internet of him looking absolutely jacked in Laguna Beach in California. So you want to talk about excitement around a UFC event, McGregor coming back will certainly do just that. We will also discuss the World Cup. Is Team USA still alive for a remarkably historic feat? We'll talk about that. We'll talk about what Team USA's path forward could look like as well. We'll also talk about some other external content going back to the MMA and boxing spaces, and we will end the show with some other fun things as well. It should be a fun time, to say the least. Let's get into the first topic, though, while we can, and then we will take a break a little bit halfway through to plug some other programming. Without further ado, let's get started. Dianna Russini and Mike Vrabel. That story has taken a bit of a weird turn in the last couple of days. It's now coming out that there seems to be a bit of a conflict of interest, some new information. But the big thing I want to highlight, though, is this traffic stop body cam footage that shows Dianna Russini interacting with a police officer and basically telling said police officer what she does for a living and basically why she had to be as quick on the draw as she was before getting pulled over. And of course, using the coaches as a, I guess, get out of jail free card to kind of get off easy with the police officer there. So we're not going to show the video, because if you guys want to see the video, you can find it for yourself, or you can go watch the latest episode of ETB Sports with Nick Morganson and myself, where we discussed all of this at length. It was a huge, huge story. We spent a lot of time talking about it. But overall, though, my first thought on this is Russini just seems to me like she's doing whatever she wants to see how much she can get away with. At least that's what the body cam footage that I saw made me think about it a little bit. And I just think it's wrong. Listen, I get it. For my profession, if you have breaking news, you got to get it out as quickly as you can. If you have a scoop, I get it. You don't want to be beaten by that. But when safety is involved and when morals are involved and when ethics are involved, you got to just come clean. You don't push it any further than it needs to. I feel like her name dropping coaches that she knows or coaches that she texted or whatever is just wrong. It's something I wouldn't do. If I was in that position, if I had a story, the only people I'd be communicating that I had a story to break would be the people who would need to know. And it's as simple as that. And that's all I need to say. I don't need to go any further than that. Those of you who know the business that I'm in and several other people are in, there are things you don't do. And to me, that's one of them, especially when it involves law enforcement. It's completely disrespectful in that regard to say that. That's number one. Number two, the silence from the Patriots, the silence from Adam Schefter, all of these things I think are adding up. It's almost like they want to paint a narrative that certain justifications are okay overall, and I just think that that's completely and utterly wrong. You got to be able to do your job in a certain way, and clearly Dianna Russini didn't do that. That's number one. And number two, what makes it even worse is it puts Mike Vrabel in a bad light, where all I've said regarding this whole thing on his side is he's going to focus on his team and what he needs to do to be successful. This is more of a distraction than anything, that he kind of put his toe into cold water, if you will, to make this even worse. So those are my thoughts. It keeps getting weirder and weirder. We still have about 8 weeks to go until the NFL season comes about. Still a lot of time to reflect and decide, okay, how is this going to be handled? What's going to happen from a football standpoint? And it doesn't seem like there's really much at all outside of that. So those are my thoughts on that. Let's move on now to some major NBA trades and what happened at the NBA draft. First, to talk about the NBA draft, because we haven't really discussed this, let's talk about the Dusty May angle here to begin. So Dusty May, right before the NBA draft, decides, hey, I'm going to leave Michigan and go to the Dallas Mavericks. This is my leverage play to take that next step. And I just think it's bizarre overall. In recent months, athletic director Ward Manuel had said that his intention was to keep Dusty May around Ann Arbor, that he wanted to lock him up for an extension. Obviously, Michigan had just won the national title, had a really, really good run just overall up to that point as well. Michigan kind of came out of nowhere, took what they had last year, enhanced it, did really well in the portal, picked up a lot of good pieces, including Elliot Cadeau and Yaxel Landenberg. And of course, when they jumped over to the pros, Dusty May obviously took sure advantage of that and made sure that at least Morez Johnson Jr. was locked in on his team this upcoming season. And that was critical from a development standpoint as the Mavericks try to rebuild. But from a Michigan standpoint, this is brutal. Now you have a lot of different constituents, if you will, where you got to trust what the interim coach is going to do. That's number one. And number two, you got to try to keep the team together. And that's exactly what happened in this case. I think almost all of the guys who decided to stay are going to do exactly that. And they're going to let this process play out. They should still be a very good team. It's just shocking considering that almost all of those guys wanted to play for Dusty May and now they no longer can. That could be a recipe for either success or disaster. I'm not so sure. But what I can tell you is that was very unique. Kind of discussing some others. Keaton Wagler goes to the LA Clippers. Congratulations to him. Had a sensational freshman season. You can say whatever you want about Wagler. Should he have stayed at Illinois for another season? Should he have left when he did? The fact of the matter is, it's life-changing money for him and his family. The Clippers have a chance to build around a young star. He's only going to get older, and he's only going to get bigger. And obviously, Underwood is extremely proud of him, and Underwood likes the team he has going into this year. And he even admitted in a media scrum earlier this week that his own team is not quite done and flushed out for the 26-27 season. So that was very fascinating. And then moving over to the trades angle of this, the trades and free agency angle, LeBron James decided he would no longer be playing for the Lakers this upcoming year, as he approaches, getting up there in age, 40, 41 years old, obviously. And it seems like, from all accounts, he wants to go to the Warriors and play with Steph Curry, which to me would be a fascinating arc of a story, if you will, or fascinating story arc, rather, because LeBron would be playing with arguably, if not the best shooter of all time in an environment that he's never played in before. And obviously, with the Warriors having struggled to get past that play-in threshold the last couple years, and all the pressure that's been put on Steve Kerr and management and all that stuff to try to get over the hump, as we briefly did hit 100 viewers in here. Shout out to you guys. Let's see if we can get that number up as it fluctuated back to 95. But nonetheless, in saying that, though, there's a lot to be excited about if you're LeBron, because it seems like he has a lot of options open as to what he wants to do. And then talking about some of the major trades, Kawhi Leonard, going to the Raptors, that's obviously a big one because the Raptors need depth. And I want to compliment my co-host in Nick Morganson in saying that, yeah, I do think if Kawhi Leonard is healthy, the Raptors have a chance to be really good. So that's number one. Obviously, if you're the Bulls are trying to get a little bit more youthful, right? But you bring in, a depth piece like Norman Powell. That's interesting. You add him in, you add Jaylen Brown now going from Boston to Philadelphia. So does the power dynamic shift in the Eastern Conference? It's all fascinating stuff overall, but I think the NBA is getting some madness it has not had, rather, in several years, at least from a casual observer standpoint. And I think that's very interesting to note, just because a lot of different sports fans, like their preferences, and the NBA really isn't one of mine. But when you have multiple major trades in multiple days, it leaves you wondering just how exciting the 26-27 season could be. And I think there's a lot to look forward to. Speaking of things to look forward to, we have to take a step back before we can take a step forward, and that is at UFC Baku. UFC Baku was this past Saturday, and it was a phenomenal event. It's one of the best events I've ever had, prediction-wise, going 12-1. That includes getting the main event of Rafael Fiziev correct over Manuel Torres in a nasty knockout. Really, really nice knockout for Fiziev. But overall, though, this card was just awesome. It had so many finishes. The prelims were insane. The crowd was into it the whole time. Fiziev clearly wants a BMF title. That would be interesting. The BMF champion right now is Charles Oliveira. I think it's a fun fight. I think if Fiziev does get that fight and he stays standing, Oliveira could be, compromised. I do think if Oliveira uses his grappling, though, I think it's a totally different fight. We'll see how that fight plays out. I'm excited to see how that fight kind of unfolds if the UFC decides to get it done. Just with the contrast of styles and the way that Fiziev was able to knock Torres out, maybe, it gets into a Muay Thai fight with Oliveira, and it gets very interesting. I'm not so sure. But overall, though, I thought this Baku card was awesome. Let's go over some of the results of this while we can. It's a bit on the older side news-wise, just because there's no UFC event this weekend. So let's make sure we do our due diligence. And I was not on this past week because I was in Florida for vacation. So the only way you guys saw my picks was on social media. So let's take a look at this if we can. All right. Here are the results. Shara over Michelle Pereira by decision in the co-main event. Mateus Camillo knocked out Nassim Sadikov. Sadikov is always really exciting. A rare Sulev stretch by Asu Almabayev was enough to beat Charles Johnson. Ikram Aliskerov defeated Bruno Ferreira by unanimous decision. and Abus Magomedov defeated Michelle Owen-Chaychuk in the welterweight division by submission. Those were some of the notable fights of the afternoon and or evening for UFC Baku. Let's move into something a little bit more substantial, and we will get into this a little bit more on Sunday, but I wanted to at least highlight this as well. Conor McGregor has had some new photos released ahead of UFC 329. He was most recently spotted at Laguna Beach. Let's take a look and let me show you guys what I'm talking about here. If you guys can see this as I pull it up, give me a second here, and there it is. Oh, wait. Let's remove this. And there you go. So according to the California Post, as you guys can see, UFC star Conor McGregor spotted walking on sand at Laguna Beach. You can see clearly that McGregor is gigantic for 170 pounds. This is huge. This is McGregor's comeback fight, his first fight for the UFC in 5 years. It'll be almost 5 years to the exact day of his last fight in the UFC, which was a gruesome leg break against Dustin Poirier. And my way too early thoughts on this are, this is huge, man. It should get people excited. He's taking his comeback, to me, very seriously. In every interview he's done so far to this point, it seems like he's ready to go. He's not worried about his injuries from the past. He's really excited about what's to come in the future if he can win this fight. He already has a fight targeted for April of 2027, although the UFC seems to be very cautious about that. They're not fully locking it in as official, but McGregor wants the fans to get behind that. It's all very interesting. We probably don't need to see this anymore, but I felt like it was worth noting just because McGregor is someone who wants as much leverage as he possibly can. He knows he only has very few opportunities left to perform at the highest level in the UFC. So the more he can hype up his own fight, the better off it is. And in fact, speaking of UFC 329, let's go over the schedule of events for the UFC next week, because it's a big week in the world of MMA regarding UFC 329. It is the 14th annual International Fight Week for the UFC. Let's talk about the schedule of events. On Thursday, the UFC presents the 2026 Hall of Fame induction ceremony that will be hosted by John Anik. Most notable fighters going in the Hall of Fame: Dominic Cruz, former UFC flyweight champion Demetrius Johnson, former middleweight champion Chris Weidman, Zhang Weili, and Joanna Jędrzejczyk's fight from 2020, and of course the deceased, as unfortunate as it sounds to say, Tom Gerbasi, the longtime writer for UFC.com. And then following that, and I forgot to give the time, 4 p.m. Pacific, which is 6 p.m. Central Time at T-Mobile Arena. And then following that is the all too important, highly anticipated UFC 329 pre-fight press conference, 7 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Central, 10 p.m. Eastern, featuring Conor McGregor, Max Holloway, Benoit Saint Denis, and Paddy Pimblett. Those are the 4 that will be on stage at the presser. That will be about 30 minutes. The media will take questions and all that good stuff, and the athletes will do their best to hype the fight. Then, of course, there is Power Slap on Friday. Power Slap can be seen at the Chelsea at the Cosmopolitan. That'll be at 6 p.m. Pacific. Tickets are still available for that. And then, of course, as part of the Bud Light UFC Summer Series, Wild Luxury will be performing at the Toshiba Plaza right outside of T-Mobile Arena. And there will be several UFC 329 watch parties across the strip, as well as a after party hosted by Meek Mill at Zook Nightclub beginning at 10:30 p.m. Pacific, which is 12:30 a.m. Sunday in Chicago. It'll be a big week for the UFC with all the festivities beginning on Thursday in the lead up to Conor McGregor's return in a rematch against Max Holloway, a fight he won all the way back in 2013 when they were both still very early on in their respective careers. Shifting gears from the octagon to the soccer pitch really, really quick with an overview of the World Cup. Where do we currently stand right now? Here we go. Let's take a look here at what's currently going on. Right now, in the 63rd minute, as we speak, Australia and Egypt are tied at a goal apiece in the round of 32. Another round of 32 action that is coming up tonight: Argentina versus Cabo Verde, Colombia versus Ghana, and then tomorrow, Canada versus Morocco, and so much more as well. So, a bunch of these teams will advance. Obviously, we're in the round of 32, so of course, a bunch of these teams will advance, of course, to the round of 16 to allow this World Cup to continue flowing. There's been some exciting matchups. Team USA took care of business against Bosnia the other night to stay alive as well. Let's round out the show, but before we round out the show, let's go in and give a shout out to some of our valued contributors over at the ETB network with some live reads. And before we get into those live reads, once again, I'm going to repopulate this. You can subscribe, of course, to the ETB network on YouTube. And of course, you can follow this very show on social media. Speaking of other network programming, right after me at 5 p.m. Eastern, Unnecessary Wagers with Connor Rowland and Nate Miller. Looking for that plus money edge, Connor Rowland and Nate Miller have you covered on Unnecessary Wagers every Friday, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. They break down the tactical ripple effects of the week's biggest matchups, from the underdog effect in the NBA playoffs to the emerging powerhouse on the MLB Diamond. We look past the box scores to find hidden value, whether it's the math behind a 4-leg stabilizer or the chaos of a 6-leg lottery ticket. We find the trends you need to know. Gamble informed with Unnecessary Wagers. And again, please gamble responsibly. You can catch those two over on the ETB network, youtube.com/ETB network. And then later tonight, to round out the slate of programming, Gridiron Gurus, the off-season edition. There is no off-season on the ETB network. The Gridiron Gurus are here with Grant Winsauer, Michael Rapolo, and Ben Cruz every Friday night at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. We're diving deep into the NFL draft boards, tracking free agency rumors, and analyzing roster construction to keep your football fix satisfied all year long. While others wait for August, the Gurus are already breaking down the schemes and players that will define the next season. Stay ahead of the curve with the Gridiron Gurus, only available on the ETB network. And let's take a look at one more show, if we can. Every Wednesday afternoon, Press Row with Callan McCorg and Nick Morgeson as a precursor to next week's programming. Get the credentialed perspective you crave. Join Callan McCorg and Nick Morgeson on Press Row Wednesday afternoons at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. We're navigating the high-stakes shifts in the media landscape, from the ethics of modern insider reporting to the rising costs of the fan experience. Whether it's a staff revolt in a major publication or the economic impact of global sporting events, we provide a grand circle tour of sports business and media headlines. We take you behind the curtain and onto Press Row, only on the Empty the Bench podcast network. Please be sure to subscribe to the channel, youtube.com/ETB network, for more exclusive interviews that you won't be able to find anywhere else. All right, with a few more topics to go, let's get through these and keep these very, very copacetic and simple. Zanzinger, I got two this week. Dana White is looking to attempt to help out Floyd Mayweather from his money troubles. This is not surprising, considering that Dana White and Floyd Mayweather Jr. have had a very close relationship dating back to the 90s. Can Dana get something done? I'm not sure, but with how much he has propped up Zuffa boxing, I think anything is possible. He keeps saying anything is possible with Zuffa boxing. There seems to be major signings down the pipeline as well. Shakur Stevenson and a few other names that have been teased haven't been officially announced by the promotion as of yet. So that's kind of all I have to say. I hope they can get something done. That'd be kind of cool to get Floyd out of his rut, but we'll see what Dana can do there. Then lastly, the Dustin Poirier situation. I have not had a chance to address this on a show like this, so I will do it now. And before I do, as I clear myself and get myself together, I just want to say this. Dustin Poirier has been one of the few athletes to give me as much time as he has over the years, and it pains me to see him in this state. I don't think he's handled retirement as well as he has needed to. He has fully admitted that retirement has been very difficult on him. It's, I'm sure, been very difficult on his family as well. I hope he can get the help he needs. He did say some out of character things that I hope he can learn from without repeating what was said on here, just for appropriate reasons, if you will. And again, he's a great fighter. He's a legend. I don't want to see the guy get hurt. Hopefully, he can figure out what he wants to. He's a phenomenal interview. He's given me a lot of his time over the years. He's the one fighter that I think has given me the most time out of every fighter I've ever interviewed in my career to this point. I think he's given me the most interviews, and they've always been just a pleasure overall, whether it was his collaboration with Bruce Buffer for all the Bud Light stuff they did for that campaign, whether it was him before his fight at UFC 298, I'm pretty sure, 299, or if it was, obviously in the realm of his retirement or anything like that. He's always been a stand-up guy to me from the beginning, and hopefully he can figure out what he needs to, because the MMA community is better off when Dustin Poirier is in a good mood, and hopefully he can figure out what he needs to without getting too bogged down by other demons that he has going on. And hopefully this is a major learning lesson for him moving forward. So we shall see what transpires there. And one thing that I saw, there's this possible boxing peace summit, and it seemed like it kind of already happened. There's been pictures that have circulated from it. There's not much more I can say about it, but let's just say this. Turki Al-Sheikh and Nick Khan, it seems to me, have a very interesting relationship, good, bad, or indifferent, however you want to slice or dice it. It is very interesting. So that'll do it for that. Sans errors, there were none that I know of. Clean show as usual. So thanks again for bearing with me as always. That's going to do it for another edition of Bando's Breakdowns. This has been episode 96. So thanks so much for tuning in. I really, really appreciate it. Once again, we will be back next week, same time for episode 97. I have another scheduling conflict coming up here for personal reasons, but we will be continuing with Bando's Breakdowns live every single week after that. So please be sure to stay tuned as well. It would be greatly appreciated if you guys really, really made sure to support, and let's make sure to do that. Speaking of, here it is. Here it is right here, in fact. Here it is right here. Bando's Breakdowns will be live moving forward at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. And then, of course, that'll begin starting July 17th, which, if I can verify that really quick. Yeah, July 17th. Friday, July 17th, 3 Eastern, noon Pacific, moving forward. Those will be live on Thursdays. It's just a little bit better for the content flow of the schedule. So thank you so much for being understanding about that. I know you guys were used to Fridays and all that good stuff and the traditional time slot, but with us going live across the network, we had to make some changes, and this was the best decision for everybody involved. But have a great 4th of July, everyone. Thanks again for tuning in. Stay cool if you're in a warm part of the country, which I think most of the country is in a bit of a heat wave at the moment. But until next week, I'm Zain Bando. Keep it locked in here for the rest of Friday's programming with the Mystery Wagers and Guerrero Gurus following me over the next several hours. But until next week, I'm Zain Bando signing off. Enjoy your holiday, and we will see you soon. Cheers, everyone. Thanks.